Good morning, children. Today's topic is our poetry part. The first poem of the first flight book I'm going to explain today, and this lesson will contain name of the poem Dust of Snow. I'll talk about the poet. I'll tell you the theme of the poem and detailed meaning of the poem. After that, I'll explain the poetic devices, and we shall talk about some question answers also. So in the beginning I start explaining the lines. I'll speak out the lines for you, how to read them. I tell you. The way a crow shook down on me the dust of snow from the hemlock tree. I repeat, the way a crow shook down on me the dust of snow from a hemlock tree. So explanation of this poem is, this particular part is that the poet Robert Frost recounts a small incident that changes his mood. It seems very simple, but it has great significance. The poet was once very depressed and hopeless. He was in a state of sorrow and was lost in his thoughts. He was standing under the hemlock tree. Suddenly a crow that was sitting on the tree shook the tree, and the fine particles of snow from the tree fell on the poet on his shoulder. See, the theme is our mood. I should give you a live example of your life, that sometimes you feel very sorrowful, sad, and suddenly some of your friend, your family member or somebody comes to you and just changes your mood. Maybe due to some action, some saying, some word, some joke or something like that. And you start laughing. You forget what you felt earlier, like sadness and other gloomy mood. Everything is over. In that case, there are so many things around us. Not friends, not relatives, human beings and somebody else, but still we have certain things which can be inanimate objects. It can be anything which can change your mood suddenly from sadness to happiness. So this is the main theme. So I just tell you the meaning more, that this poem is Dust of Snow, written by Robert Frost. It's very simple short poem, yet with a deeper and larger meaning. The poet explains how an act as petty as experiencing snow on one's body can brighten one's day up. The message of the poem is put into words by Robert Frost. So this was the first stanza, and the second stanza is, has given my heart a change of mood and saved some part of a day I had rued. So this is the second part. I explained this one, that when the soft cold snow fell on the poet, it changed his mood from the state of sadness to happiness. He started feeling soothed, SOOTHED, soothed. And soothed means peaceful, comfortable, and he got refreshed. This simple incident helped him enjoy the remaining part of the day. So he thus became happy, as it saved his rest of the day from being wasted and held in regret. So this is the second part. Now I come to the summary of this poem. So the summary is like that. The poem is set in a scene where the poet is in bad mood and is walking by a tree, a hemlock tree. Hemlock tree is a poisonous tree. As he passes by, a crow happens to throw some snow dust on him. Whether it falls on his head or shoulder, it is unknown to us, and there is no specific mention in the poem also. Also, the readers are left in doubt about the bird's specific action, whether the crow was landing shivering with the cold, readjusting itself on the branch of, or taking it off. It happened to send some particles of snow upon the author. And here, the two agents of nature, the hemlock tree and the crow, are signifiers of sadness and gloom, just like the poet's mood was in the opening scene. Both are considered to be negative, as hemlock tree and crow are not considered auspicious in our lives. That's why the poet mentioned them as poisonous tree and crow, which is of black appearance. But still, the real message from the poet is that the negativity around us can be converted to positivity, sometimes by negative things also. Like hemlock tree and the crow, both are negative in sense in society, in our inauspicious entities of the world. But still they can give us happiness. What happened? There was hemlock tree, he passed by that tree. A crow, which is inauspicious and bird, who sat on that tree on one of the branches. When he sat there, some movement took place on the branch, and the snow which was on the branches, it fell on the shoulder of the poet. And that cool feeling of that ice or the snow which fell on the shoulder changed the mood of the poet immediately, and he forgot his sadness and became happy. This is a theme that negative things can also bring happiness to your life. So for reasons unknown, the author was having terrible day, but the falling of the snow on his head lifted his mood instantly. He had already spent his day in a bad mood, but the rest of it was saved by the crow and the hemlock tree. See, generally hemlock tree and crow are used for negative references, but the poet used them beautifully to portray that inauspicious things can bring joy and happiness too. One must not take things for granted and should be open and accept whichever way the nature chooses to bless us. So this is all the explanation and the summary of the poem, and I just come to the literary devices, which can be spoken as poetic devices or the figures of speech. So I tell you about first figure of speech, and before that I just like to tell you the rhyme scheme of this poem, that is A B A B C D C D. If I talk about the words which are matching in A B A B first stanza, crow and snow are A, me and tree are B. Then crow first, second is me, snow third, and tree is fourth. That's why the rhyme scheme for the first stanza is A B A B, and similarly for the next one A B A B A B A B C D C D. So that way, first one is A B A B, second stanza C D C D. That was rhyme scheme. Now I just talk about some that is literary devices. First one, I talk about alliteration. Alliteration is the occurrence of the same letter or sound at the beginning of adjacent or closely connected words. I just read out the line where I found alliteration is has given my heart. Has and heart have H as consonant sound, which are same. So it is one of the part of alliteration, and in another line we have and saved some part. Saved and some. They begin with the consonant S. That way, this is alliteration. Repetition of sound in the line. I come to the next literary device, that is inversion. Inversion is when the structure of sentence is changed by the poet to create rhyme. This poetic license or this poetic device is called inversion. In stanza number 1, inversion can be seen, where the second line should come formally before first one. The first line should come after second one to make a sensible sentence, but generally poets use this kind of device to make their creativity, or you can say the poems, interesting, attractive. That way, assonance or inversion is used. The next poetic device that is used here is assonance. The prominence of a vowel sound throughout a line is called assonance. In stanza number 1, line number 2, I read out for you that contains the assonance is shook down on me. Shook down in literal form, in written form, shook contains O, down contains O, on contains O. So in this particular line, we have a main prominent sound of O, which is used in a various way. So this way, this is called assonance, which is a prominent vowel sound throughout the line. It is called assonance. So this way, students, these are two literary devices which I just explained. We have one more, irony. Irony is basically when a situation, objects, or any two instances come in the contrast. Here we have hemlock tree and crow, both are negative elements of this poem. But positivity is there. Both of them indirectly or directly brought happiness to the poet. So from sadness to happiness, it was a complete conversion of both the moods which are opposite in nature. Similarly, this negativity, or you can say the negative considered elements of the nature like hemlock tree and crow, they brought happiness. So poet thinks that why these are negative? They are positive for him. They brought happiness to him. So other way, if we think that hemlock tree is a poisonous tree, otherwise it is basically a medicinal tree. It cures the people, it treats the people. And crow is inauspicious considered animal, but it is positive in case of like it is a natural scavenger. It cleans our surrounding environment. So every negative thing has a positive side. This is also the theme of this poem. So I come to the next part, the question answers of this one. So I just tell you, I come to the first one. I read out the text on the screen. This poem presents a moment that seems simple but has a larger significance. We have to compare this other quotation from Robert Frost's always, always a larger significance. A little thing touches a larger thing. So what is little thing here? Little thing is the elements of the earth, the nature is considered little, but larger thing is our mood, the complete psychology, complete philosophy. It has a larger meaning. So these little things like dust particle of snow, the particle of snow converted from sadness to happiness, the mood of the poet. So this is called little thing. I come to the first question. What is a dust of snow? So dust of snow refers to the tiny particles of snow. The particles are so small that poet referred to them as dust. The poet was in an awful mood when particles of snow had fallen on him. This changed the poet's frame of mind instantly, and his day got a lot better. This is the answer of this first question. So How has the poet's mood changed? As soon as the dust particles fell on the shoulder or on the poet's mood changed. He became happy after that. When I come to question number 2, I read out for you. How does Frost present nature in this poem? The following questions may help you to think of an answer. So, this writer, the poet of this poem, presents nature in his poem. How does he represent the nature? First one is, what are the birds that are usually named in poems? First one is crow. Birds like sparrow, nightingale and peacock are more than often named in his poems. In other poetry of Robert Frost, many other birds are mentioned. So, unlike these birds, crows are often seen as the indicators of doom and fear. They are often used for negative references. This could be the answer of this particular question. Second part, first part of question, second. I come to second part of the question number 2, which is this one. I tell you, that is, I'm talking about this. Okay. Just wait. Okay, now I'm talking about second part. Again, what is hemlock tree? I just read out again for you. That is, again, what is hemlock tree? Why doesn't the poet write about a more beautiful tree such as maple or an oak or a pine? So answer to this question could be, which you can write in your own words also, that a tree also seen as mighty creatures. Trees are also seen as mighty creatures, imparting wisdom. As they are too old, they give out oxygen and absorb the carbon dioxide, which is connected with absorbing all the negative energy. But there are trees that are poisonous too, like hemlock tree. The poet does not mention it more beautiful trees such as maple, oak or pine because he wants to indicate a sad scene. Being poisonous, a hemlock tree is considered bad, and so he refers to it. So poet contrasts between two things, good and bad. So this could be the answer of question number 2, second part. Now I come to third part, which is here. I just tell you, that is this one. This one. So that is, what do the crow and hemlock represent? Joy or sorrow? What does the dust of snow that the crow shakes off a hemlock tree stand for? I'll tell you the meaning of this. I repeat the question for you. What do the crow? Okay, I repeat the question number 2's third part. What do the crow and hemlock represent? Joy or sorrow? What does the dust of snow that the crow shakes off a hemlock tree stand for? So I just give you the probable answer, and which you can also see, and you can frame your own answers. That is, Both crow and hemlock tree represent sorrow, according to the poet. And Frost has used both the negative creatures, crow and the hemlock tree, as the carriers of positivity and strength that transformed his day for the better. But not using birds like sparrow and nightingale and trees like maple, oak, or a pine. The poet has tried to break down all the preconceived notions we have about certain agents of nature. He has tried to make us understand that we see the world not as how it is, but as how we want to see it. Thus, the crow sitting and hemlock tree together made his day better. The dust of snow stands for joy. Now, I just make you understand this answer because you may not be able to understand this answer in my words. I simplify this one that the crow and hemlock tree and this animal or the bird is considered to be negative element of this nature. But for the poet, for the society, both are considered to be negative. They spread negativity around. But for the poet, it is the matter of joy, as they brought happiness to him. This is the first part, first meaning. And second part of the answer is that what does the dust of snow represent? And hemlock tree shaking of this dust of snow represents for him. The dust of snow represents joy for the poet here. So this is the answer of the third part of second question. This way, my dear children, this first poem is concluded, and I believe you will understand each and everything. You will ask me doubts. You don't have to wait for that. Doubts will not be cleared. Immediately you can ask me doubts on WhatsApp through your messages. You're all welcome. But you must work very hard and complete your work in time. So have a nice day. Thank you so much. I'll just continue the next part of this video or the audio for the next poetry just after this. Good morning, children. I'm here again for you to explain the poem number 2 from the first flight book. The name of the poem is Fire and Ice, and this poem is written by Robert Frost. And Robert Frost's poem Fire and Ice expresses the profound idea that the world would end in either of two ways, either by ice or fire. Both the components are compared with self-destructing human emotions, hatred and desire. This poem very aesthetically underpins the philosophy that we let our emotions rule us, and if we don't control them, they will surely destroy everything around us. Similarly, he thinks fire and ice both are just as competent in bringing the world to a catastrophic end. As you know, Robert Frost is a poet of nature, and he talks about the nature that we have a nature of love and peace and living together with happiness. And this is called a balance made by the human beings to live together in a very peaceful manner. So this way, the poet says the theme, or you can say the central idea of poem is, if this balance of peace and love and harmony is disturbed, then it will lead to an imbalance of over passion or over hatred to each other between one another. People will start hating each other, or people will start coming together in a passionate mood. So both are destructive in nature. So poet compares hatred with icy, that is when there is a coldness between the relations when we don't talk to each other and hate. So poet compares this hate with coldness, and when we are compassionate, we are passionate to each other. That more passion, when it is imbalanced, then it will lead to a fire element. Both are very destructive in nature, and earth will start perishing and it will be destroyed. That way, this is the theme and the central idea of this poem. So that way I just have to read out the poem for you and explain this poem which is on your screen. So I read out for you that some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. From what I have tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. So the meaning of this particular stanza is that the poet expresses a profound idea that the world would end in either of the two ways, either by ice or fire. One group of thought is of the opinion that someday the Earth's core will get so heated up that it will lead to fire destroying the Earth's surface. On the other hand, the second group says that if the temperature goes down to an extent that makes life on Earth impossible, it would have the same catastrophic effect. The poet then compares fire and ice with the destructive features of human emotions, that is, desire and hatred. Desire is related to fire, and hatred is related to coldness. He says that from what he is aware about fiery desires, he would favor the ones who say that it would be fire. By saying so, he brings about the idea that human beings let the emotions rule them, and the consequence of unmonitored longing is chaos. It means people should maintain a balance to live together happily. If this balance is broken, the earth will be destroyed. And it compares this destruction with the earth's crust, its fire inside, because it is heated up inside the core of the earth, and outside it is, for example, if the sunlight doesn't come, then the earth will cool down and it will just freeze that everybody will freeze to death. That way this explanation goes for the first stanza, and there are certain difficult words which I just mentioned them. First one is desire, a strong feeling that is which is in the very prominently written on the screen, I believe. Desire, a strong feeling of wanting to have something or wishing for something to happen is called desire. So that way, next word is favor. Favor means approval or support. Basically, what I want to say is that you should understand the word's meaning in the poem's context, not the meaning according to dictionary. Dictionary might have different meanings, but the words given here, which are difficult, their meaning should match with the context of the poem. They are very important. That's why I always say that all the difficult words should be written in meaning, so that you understand the context of the prose and poetry both. Now I have second stanza before me, which I have to read out and explain. Second one is but if it had to perish twice, by chance it had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction eyes it is also great and would suffice. This is the reading part of the second stanza of this poem, and I explain that then by not waving off the first option of fire, he considers if the world has to expire twice, The poet thinks that he tells that if the earth is destroyed once, then again it regrows, it comes into existence, then again it has to perish or destroyed. Then in that case, that once it will be destroyed with fire, then second time it will be destroyed with coldness. So this is the beginning of this stanza. He considers if the world has to expire twice, ice would be equally competent in ending it. He brings about a contrast between ice and hatred. So he tells that there is a relation between ice and hatred. The human capability of insensitivity and hatred has the potential for inner destruction. What does it mean? That when we hate or when we become insensitive towards others, then it leads to an icy affair. We don't take care of others. We always ignore others. We think we become selfish. This is called basically ice is related to that. And it will also destruct the earth. Though slow and steady, it has the same effect that desire has on us. So if given an option between fire and ice would be just as good as fire to destroy the world. So dear children, you can understand the human relationships which are very prominently exhibited around in your house, in your home, around you, in your society, in relatives. You can see there are so many people who live happily together. They love each other. They are very compassionate towards each other. But some people hate each other and they don't talk to each other. That is called hate, and hate is an ice. And when we love each other, that is a fire element. But when fire is more, everything destroys. And if ice is also more, then it leads to complete freezing of the relationship. And when relationships are not there between any two of these whole earth, any two of the persons of the whole earth, then in that case, then nobody will survive on this earth. So the main theme you understood, I believe. I just come to the part which is called poetic devices or literary devices or the figures of speech, which is very important. Here the rhyming scheme is A, B, A in the first stanza, and in the second stanza it is B, C, B, C, B. So the literary devices which are other than this rhyming scheme is assonance. Assonance is repetition of vowel sound. Which sounds in the same line. The repetition is at different places in different words. We have to give example. That is the long sound of O in I hold with those who favor fire. In this line we have O in hold, and you can see this line on the screen. I hold. The last line of the first stanza. In hold you can say O, in those you can say O, in who it is O also, in favor also it is O. So repetition of the sound and particular written letter in these words is called assonance. That is repetition of the vowel sound and vowel letter. Next one is alliteration, which I am talking about. Alliteration is the repetition of a consonant sound at the start of two or more closely placed. We have alliteration. Alliteration is the repetition of consonant sound at the start of two or more closely placed words. Example is the sound of F in favor and the fire. These are two words where F sound comes. W in the world will, which is available in the first stanza. I'll tell you. In first stanza it is would, will, world will, and we have favor fire in the line, last line of first stanza. So this is the example of alliteration. If I talk about imagery, imagery is another literary device which is used here. It is used to make readers perceive things involving their five senses, and we just imagine things. An example here is, some say the world will end in fire. So there some people are saying, they are imagining. So it is imagination used by the people of the world. This part in this sentence is called imagery. And we have one more, anaphora, another literary device. It is the repetition of a word or expression at the start of two or more consecutive lines. Examples are, some say is repeated at the start of line 1 and 2. So this is first stanza contains, some say the world will end, some say in ice. This is called anaphora, which is repetition of one word or two words in the beginning of two or more lines, consecutive lines. So another we have literary device which is personification. Personification is basically to give human qualities to inanimate objects. So this is one of the literary devices. So dear children, I believe you are able to see these all devices like assonance, and third one is alliteration, which I explained. Imagery I explained. Anaphora is another one. Anaphora means repetition of a word or expression in the start of two or more lines, consecutive lines. So next one was personification. Personification is to give human qualities to inanimate objects. In this poem, fire and ice are capable of destruction. Thus, the poet personifies fire and ice by giving them, what are these two elements? I just mentioned them. Fire and ice, that is fire and ice. So that way it is personification mentioned here. And there is one engemmement. It is defined as the thought or clause that does not come to an end at a line break, rather it moves over to the next line. This is called engemmement, and there is an example given here. The example is, from what I have tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. What does it mean? That a thought or clause that does not come to an end at a line break, rather it moves over to the next line. It means the line, from what I have tasted of desire I hold with those who favor fire. This is in fact a single line but broken into two parts. A single thought which is broken in two parts is called engemmement. So this is another one, another figure of speech. And now we have summary which you can read and easily understand, which I have explained earlier also. And I come to the question answers, and that way your lesson will be over for this second poetry, second poem, Fire and Ice. And this is, if I talk about the question answers, I just come to this one. Question number 1, if I talk about, there are many ideas. Where are question answers? There are many ideas about how the world will end. Do you think the world will end someday? Have you ever thought what would happen if the sun got so hot that it bursts, or grew colder and colder? The answer is, which I am reading here, unfortunately the world is going to end one day, and there is nothing we can do about it. There are many ideas as to how it will end, but one can't say surely. And I am reading here, I tell you, that is here. The reason that life exists only on earth is that the circumstances and temperature is apt to make it possible. If the sun gets so hot one day that it is at the verge of bursting, it would lead to rapid destruction as there would be fire everywhere. Conversely, if it grows colder and colder, there will be ice everywhere on earth, and life in any form would not be able to sustain at such low temperatures. So, for the poet Frost, what do fire and ice stand for? It's very easy. There are some ideas. Fire and ice. We have greed. Like greed, avarice, cruelty, lust, conflict, fury, intolerance, rigidity, and insensitivity, coldness, indifference, hatred. And according to Frost, fire stands for greed, conflict, fury, and all the words which I mentioned here. And whereas ice stands for insensitivity, coldness, intolerance, indifference, rigidity, and hatred. And my dear students, the third answer, which you have to study yourself, I conclude this poem, and I believe you must read it thoroughly, learn the answers, write the exercises in the notebook as I have explained, as I have guided you. So I expect your doubts, and you're always welcome for your all the doubts. I'm here for you always. Thank you, students. Have a nice day.